Good evening. I am back live. We do not have a verdict yet, but it looks like we have a question from the jury. So we are going to cover that question from the jury. I'll give everybody a couple minutes to get here before we start the live feed with the court. Hopefully we get a couple people in the room here. Typically, the jury will have questions as they're deliberating, and the court has to get approval from both the plaintiff and the defense regarding whether or not those questions are going to be answered before answering them. Without that kind of approval from the plaintiff and the defense, the court has to make a determination, and whichever side they go against, typically the defense, if they go against the defense will kind of try to use that if in the event of any potential appeal. So they do look for approval from both sides before actually answering any questions from the jury during deliberations. They don't want the public becoming aware of what might be the content of the jury deliberations. So before we hear anything, the judge does have to review everything and make sure that it doesn't reveal to us the kind of the process behind which the jury is using to come to a decision in this case. So, Jeff, good to see you. Miss Carol, good to see you back here as well. No, the jury's not back. We have a question from the jury. So I don't want anybody to miss out. So I decided to hop on here live and let's see what the jury has to say here. I wasn't really prepared, so I don't have everything fully set up just yet. I wanted to hop on as quickly as possible to give people time to show up. But as you can see, the judge is back in her seat. I don't believe that the jury is present, but they could be. This is probably going to start off with them talking through whether or not to answer the jury's question. So let's listen in and see what we can learn from this jury question.
Taking place outside the presence of the jury panel. I received a note from the jury foreperson. It's been marked as court's exhibit number 24. First question is, can we have more paper? We have taken more paper back to him.
We need some paper.
The next question is, how do we zoom in on the videos? I don't know how to do that. We don't. That's why we asked you to bring your IT person. And so,
What do we have?
sure. I mean, I don't know if we can show them, if we can show the foreperson how to do it, or we'll have to bring them back in the courtroom.
So do you know, is there a way to zoom in on certain videos?
Well, Mr. Draskovich did it.
I know how to do it.
Yes,
You did it.
Mike knows how to do it.
I can do it. I
He's
can
doing
try
Okay,
it.
but they have a laptop back there.
And I was told it did have a Zoom capability, so that was,
Okay, will you just come up and state your name for the record?
Sure. My name is Jetta Baldami.
Okay, if we brought the laptop out, would you be able to determine?
Sure, I can take a look at it, depending on what the player is. It should have that capability.
Do you know what the player is on the?
I've never seen the player before, so I would have to inspect it.
Oh, you mean the laptop, whatever's on the laptop?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so I'll go out and I'll ask the officer of the court to ask the foreperson to bring the laptop out. If you want to come in the hallway?
Sure.
The attorneys can come back here.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so we had two questions from the jury, apparently. The first one was, can we have some paper? The second one seems to be, how do we zoom in on the video? Robert Tellis has to be loving that they are asking this question. Because if you remember from closing arguments, the defense showed us some video of this vehicle driving by and zoomed in on the driver, and in one frame you see what is obviously a person with hair. Robert Tellis obviously does not have hair. So in the second one, he kind of alludes to there being hair. It's a little harder to see, but the fact that the jury wants to know how to zoom in on the video could indicate that there's at least one person there who even cares that there's potentially another driver of a burgundy vehicle that is markedly similar to the one driven by the assailant. Now, in my analysis, that doesn't really, that particular nuance didn't really do much to indicate whether or not Mr. Tellis was guilty or innocent. But if the jury cares about it, if the jury cares enough to look at a zoomed in video, perhaps they're looking to see if they can spot hair on the head of the driver. And that's not necessarily just with respect to the video that the defense attorney zoomed in on. They may want to go in and zoom in on all of the instances that we see the vehicle and see if they can see a silhouette of the driver and see if we can get a profile view that kind of shows that this driver has hair or perhaps doesn't have hair. I do recall seeing a video during the testimony while Mr. Mogg was presenting all of that video where the driver actually looked to be bald. So perhaps the jury wants to zoom in on all the video to kind of compare and contrast the differences perhaps between the driver that the defense attorney zoomed in on versus the driver in all of those other video clips that we saw. But regardless, it does kind of indicate that maybe, it seems to indicate that maybe there is some doubt in the minds of at least one of the jurors, and that the jury is having to deliberate over that, having to, answer some questions back and forth, kind of talking this thing out. And I don't know if we have any other questions. It seems like these are the only two questions. Can we have more paper? And how do we zoom in on the video? So just to touch on what the can we have more paper question signifies. So when you're back there in the jury room, again, nobody knows exactly what goes on back there with respect to any case, but they typically cast ballots to see where everybody stands with respect to finding the defendant guilty. And they do it by secret ballot, so everybody kind of writes down a G or I if they're guilty or innocent, and then everybody tosses their piece of paper into a hat, and they start pulling out pieces of paper one by one to determine how many people are saying guilty, how many people are saying not guilty. So if they're asking for more paper, that likely means that they have cast ballots several times already, attempted to come to a decision. So they probably cast an initial ballot as soon as they got back there. Let's just see where everybody stands without any discussion. And after that initial ballot, when they saw that, you know, there was at least one person who was of a different opinion than everyone else, whichever way that leans, they then had to go into discussions. And when they felt like they got to a close of the discussions, they probably cast another ballot, and so on and so forth until they ran out of paper. So lunch was supposed to be over at 5 o'clock our time, at which point the jury would begin deliberations. That means they've been deliberating for now over 2.5 hours. And apparently they've gone through quite a number of pieces of paper. So they've likely gone through a number of these polls to try to determine, you know, whether they have reached a consensus, and they haven't yet. If they're zooming in on video at this point, like if they figure this part out and they start zooming in on video, I doubt that we're going to have a verdict tonight, because everybody goes home at 8:30 our time, 5:30 their time. Everybody goes home. It's now 7:40. They're still figuring out this video thing. So for the jury to be able to have time to not only parse through all of the bits of video data that they have back there in evidence, and convince whatever holdouts there are, either on the guilty or not guilty side, convince whatever holdouts there are, that's probably going to take more than the 50 minutes that they have left before the day is over. So they're probably we're probably looking at not having a verdict until tomorrow at the earliest. So Celine says maybe the defense is closing through a spinner in the works regarding the video. And yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like without them honing in on that little bit of the video there, we'd probably be done here. And Tellus seems to understand that. His facial expression is looking different now, but yeah, guys, I don't think we're gonna have a verdict tonight. Yeah, Jeff says all the other evidence, it doesn't really, even with all of the other evidence, the defense did a great job with this one thing. And it might be a great enough job such that that's all they needed. Remember, all they need is reasonable doubt. And if they can just, if this driver has hair, my client didn't do it. That looks like where we are right now. But yeah, Natalie, it is a false alarm for the verdict. We're not here for the verdict, which is why I didn't use the little thumbnail that was created. That's still sitting out there. So if we do get a verdict tonight, I can just hop on that. But yeah, Celine, you're still, you still seem very hopeful. You can't miss this. I really need to see his reaction when the guilty comes. So Selena, it sounds like none of this video stuff, even if they are able to zoom in on the video, you don't think that's going to change anything, huh? And Miss Carol, you say, I anticipate him crying like when he first got on the stand. So you too seem to think that Zooming in on the video isn't going to do him much good here. No, Celine says no. No, this doesn't help him. He's still going to be found guilty. You know, I tend to agree, but I've seen juries do crazier things than what it would take to let Robert Tellis off in this particular case. While we're looking at this shot, I just want to point out, we have not heard from that guy sitting at the defense table in blue. He has not participated in this trial at all. He didn't question one witness. He didn't do anything.
The hearing is continuing to take place outside the presence of the jury panel. The state, and that's an employee from your office, correct?
That's correct.
Jetta Balgami. She went with the court officer back into the jury deliberation room, showed the jurors how to do it, and they did that without objection. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Draskovic?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and so they're continuing to deliberate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that looks like it for now. They are continuing to deliberate, as the judge just said, and on the off chance that we get a verdict tonight, I'm gonna hop back on, but I don't think it's likely. I don't think we're gonna get one this evening, as I said. So I'm sorry if everybody jumped on thinking we had a verdict, saw me go live thinking we had a verdict. This was just a jury question. All that at the end where where the judge was asking the defense and the prosecution questions. Again, if he's found guilty, and then the defense is likely going to try every avenue that's available to try to appeal the decision. And, you know, Robert Tellis is going to sit in prison, and he's going to try every avenue to get his verdict overturned. And the more there are disagreements, especially by the defense attorney, to what is being done, the more potential holes to pick in this entire trial, to say that the trial, these things were improper as the trial occurred. So she wanted to make sure she got it on the record that everybody was okay with the state's tech person. I believe that lady that we saw was there with the state. The state's tech person was allowed to go back and demonstrate to the jury how to use the Zoom function on the laptop computer that they have access to. Because without that, there could be a question of whether or not that lady was back there, you know, tampering with the jury, essentially. And that will definitely lead to a mistrial if there is any indication that the jury has been tampered with. Jeff says there's so much more evidence against Mr. Tellis than the video, essentially. So, yeah. And that's the thing. You know, even if that's a different guy in that video, what do you do with the DNA? What do you do with the cut up shoes and the hat in the house? What do you do with all of that? But that's it for the jury question, everybody. That might be it for today. We'll see. I do hope we get a verdict today. And if we do, I hope to see you all back here. If not, I hope to see you all bright and early tomorrow, bright and early Nevada time tomorrow, because that will mean that the jury reached a verdict early in the morning, Nevada time, and we'll be here for it. I'll be here for it. I hope you join me. Thanks for joining me for the jury question. For now, my name is Nathan Saunders, and as always, this is The Legal Good. Have a good night, everybody.